Welcome back everyone. Time to do another and probably one of the more final comparisons I'm going to do of the Google Pixel 4a. I'm getting the Note 20s like in a couple of days, so I'm probably going to focus on those. But we're going to review it against one of my favorite phones probably ever, which is the OnePlus 7T. Now the OnePlus 7T came out, back in 2019, not even a year ago. And surprisingly on Amazon, now the Pixel 4a isn't really out yet. It's going to be out by August 20th, and it's going to be costing $350 on there, where the OnePlus 7T right now is costing $450 on Amazon, which I will leave that link down below, as well as the Pixel 4a whenever that comes out. I'll go and leave both those linked down for the cheapest prices on Amazon, so you can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the front, let's go and start off with the OnePlus 7T since it is older. It has a 6.55-inch Fluid AMOLED display, and it is 1080p. Now, it's a bigger phone than the Pixel 4a in almost every dimension. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the OnePlus 7T has a teardrop type of design on the front of it, so there's no hole punch display or anything. And to me personally, between this and the hole punch display on the 4a, I really don't care. They're both kind of the same thing to me, and I really don't have a preference. There is almost the same amount of bezel on both as well, but do keep in mind the Pixel 4a has a smaller display than the OnePlus 7T, so it's a pretty big thing to keep in mind. But the biggest thing about the OnePlus 7T, first of all, the display itself I think is pretty good. It's a good looking 1080p display, but the best thing about this panel, and the thing that I think takes it up the completely other notch, is that 90Hz refresh rate. When I was messing with it earlier, I totally forgot that it even had it, and I was like, wow, this panel is really good. It's so smooth and everything, and I remember that this thing has that 90Hz refresh rate, and that is a really, really killer feature. That is something that's really awesome. Still, some phones don't have it, like the iPhones don't have it yet. Hopefully the iPhone 12 will bring it. But the OnePlus 7T does have that feature, which is really, really cool. So now moving on to the Google Pixel 4a, this one has a 5.81-inch OLED display, and it's a little bit smaller than the 7Ts. You have that hole punch display like I stated, and I don't know if the one's better than the other one in terms of design, so you just kind of figure that out yourself. But the display itself isn't bad, but it's definitely not as good as the OnePlus 7Ts. Even if it didn't have that 90Hz refresh rate on the 7T, I would still say that panel is better because the panel itself looks so much better in my opinion. But I will say, for a $350 brand new phone, the Pixel 4a's display is really impressive. It really is pretty good. For a brand new phone you can go and order from Google or wherever you can get it from, that is a really impressive price to pay for a phone that looks like this. And even though it doesn't feel the best and everything, which I'll get into in a second, it's still pretty impressive that Google was able to make this type of phone with this type of layout at that specific price tag. So in terms of the front, I'll give it to the 7T, but the 4a is still pretty impressive. They both have USB Type-C, but the 4a does have a headphone jack, which is really cool. And on the back, glass back on the OnePlus 7T, which is really impressive, and I really like that. With that kind of circular camera layout, which I kind of was a fan of. I thought it looked really cool. I don't know why it never took off, but they did switch it up with the OnePlus 8, but the 4a has a single camera setup with that fingerprint sensor on the back and a plastic bag. So between these two, there's $100 difference between these, but the 7T still kind of feels like a flagship device, where the 4a really does feel like a budget device. But again, that's something you're going to have to consider. Even though the OnePlus 7T is a year older, it's still pretty impressive that it feels still really nice compared to the budget phone of this year, which is the Pixel 4a. So in terms of the outside, I would definitely give the edge to the OnePlus 7T. It feels much more premium, and it is much more premium, but the 4a is still really impressive for what you're getting for that $350 price tag with that whole punch display and everything considered. So in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it. In terms of the software, they're both running Android 10, and they're both going to be lasting for quite a bit of time too. My initial thought process would be that maybe the Pixel 4a may last longer than the OnePlus 7T, but they're both going to be lasting around the same time because the Google Pixel 4 and the 4a I think are going to get around the same updates. So if that is the case, these phones are probably going to last kind of near each other. Maybe the 4a will last a little bit longer, I'm not too sure. But the good thing about both phones is that both of them are pretty stock for the most part. One isn't really completely more stock than the other one. The only main advantage that the Oxygen OS has is that it is a little bit more feature friendly in my opinion. So there's more features on Oxygen OS, which I personally like. And like I said before, I actually prefer Oxygen OS over stock Android, but that might change very soon because OnePlus is changing their software up a little bit, which it's not for the good if I'm being honest. But with Google and with the Pixel and stock Android, it's what you're getting. It's stock Android. I love it. It's very cool. And in terms of both, one really doesn't blow the other one out of the water. But I personally prefer Oxygen OS. but the Pixel 4a may last longer in terms of the longevity of the software over the OnePlus 7T. So in terms of that really pretty much covers it up there. Now I did do a speed test between both of them, which I'll go ahead and show you guys now. And as you guys can see, it's kind of interesting because, with the OnePlus 7T, you're getting that Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 640 GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM on each model. With the Google Pixel 4a, you're getting that Qualcomm Snapdragon 730 processor, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 618 GPU, and 6 gigs of RAM. And what I can tell you is that I kind of saw that both of them are pretty fast for the most part, but I think that the OnePlus 7T is the faster device more times than not. Like I said before, there are times where the Pixel 4a was faster, but it was, I think, more consistent on the OnePlus 7T, and if the 4a beat it, the OnePlus 7T was right behind it, literally like split seconds. So I don't really know if one really blew the other one out of the water, but what I can tell you is from my performance and just my usability of both, that I think the 4As were really impressive for what you're getting. It's an extremely smooth device. Anything I did with it was perfectly fine if I was opening apps, whatever, and both of them kind of suffer from the same things that Android has. Sometimes if I'm opening up an app and it's in landscape mode and I swipe out of it, it'll just glitch up on me like crazy. Sometimes if I click a game like Real Racing 3 for example, they both glitch up at the same time. So again, it's kind of to each their own. I don't think one really blows the other one completely out of the water, but I like the OnePlus 7T though as well because it's a very good performing phone. It's very smooth, and with that kind of newer chipset and with that newer design and with the 8 gigs of RAM, you are getting 2 additional gigabytes of RAM on the OnePlus 7T, where the Pixel 4a does not have that. So again, that's a big thing to keep in mind. In my opinion, I do think the OnePlus 7T is the better performing phone between both of them, but I still think for the price that you're paying, the Google Pixel 4a is a very impressive price tag, and for $350, you can't really beat that right now unless you want to go up to the iPhone SE2. But then you're kind of, suffering a little bit here and there. So when it comes down to it, I'd probably give the edge to the OnePlus 7T, but the Google Pixel 4a is still an extremely impressive performing phone as well. So in terms of that really pretty much covers it. Now hitting on the cameras, this is pretty interesting because the OnePlus 7 Pro has a triple camera setup, a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, where the Pixel 4a has a 12.2 megapixel single camera lens. And what I can tell you is between both, there's advantages, disadvantages for both of them. I will say, I think the single camera setup on the Pixel 4a, if I was taking photos, I think it might actually look better than the photo on the OnePlus 7T Pro, on the OnePlus 7T, and I don't know why that is. I mean, the software has always been really good on the Pixel cameras, so that's probably it. But I will say that the quality itself, like I stated, is better on the Pixel 4a, I think, but you do have the ability of shooting 4K at 60 on the OnePlus 7T, where you don't have that on the Pixel 4a. You only have 4K at 60, but on top of that, you are getting a telephoto and ultra-wide sensor on the OnePlus 7T, where you are not getting that type of capability on the 4a. So even though the quality might be better on that single camera sensor, you are getting a better camera layout on the OnePlus 7T, which is a humongous thing to keep in mind. So one doesn't really blow the other one out of the water, but you are getting more capability from a camera like the OnePlus 7T, where you're not really getting it on the Pixel 4a. So that's a pretty big thing to keep in mind. And in terms of the camera, I think I would probably end up siding with the OnePlus 7T over the Pixel 4a. Now ending it off with the battery life, we have a 3800 mAh battery on the OnePlus 7T and a 3140 mAh battery on the Pixel 4a. Now both of them do not have wireless charging, which kind of sucks on both. I feel like both of them could have supported it, but it is what it is. We can't really do anything about it at this point. But what I will tell you though is that I kind of think that the OnePlus 7T has the better battery life if we took out that 90Hz refresh rate. That does kind of, succumb the battery a little bit, but not too much in my opinion. I think it's still a really good battery life, and I think the OnePlus 7T at the end of the day has a better battery life over the Pixel 3a, but it's not by much. The Google Pixel 4a is a great battery life phone, really anything you do with it, and I've compared it to a lot of other devices, and this thing beat my SC2, and it wasn't beating my S10e, but it was still pretty close. It wasn't even that close. The S10e beat it by a lot, but if for everyday usage, I think the Pixel 4a is a pretty good performing phone when it comes down to the battery life, but the OnePlus 7T I think is the better battery life when it comes down to it. You're getting a much larger battery, and it's not really that bulky of a software, and I do like having a huge battery with this type of phone layout. So And definitely when it comes down to it, I would say that the OnePlus 7T is probably the better battery device when it comes down to it. So in terms of everything, and to kind of sum up this video, which phone should you get? If you didn't have either one of these, should you get the Pixel 4a? Should you get the OnePlus 7T? I will tell you, I think the OnePlus 7T is the better device in like literally every angle. I think that phone has the more capability. It does more. You kind of have a better camera, the build quality is amazing, and there's really not too much to hate on it. This phone will last you for a very long time, but for a brand new device, if you have to go brand new, you don't want to buy it on Amazon or whatever, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you need to buy a brand new device, the Google Pixel 4a for $350 is an exceptional phone. It's a very good, it's not really like groundbreaking in anything, but you are basically paying for kind of the performance and the screen. That's pretty much what you're paying for, the stock software, the longevity of it, and the performance. And if you're okay with the way it feels and the way it looks a little bit, then I guess be my guest. But I still think the OnePlus 7T is probably the better device between these two. So that really pretty much covers it. If you guys have any questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.